In the last video, we took a look at physical packaging and we saw how women should dress, even if you're a transgender, should dress for interviews generally. That it doesn't matter if it's a job interview, embassy or visa interview, scholarship interview, internship or IT placement interviews. No matter the kind of interviews, you should dress professionally, and you should try as much as possible. You should go for these interviews dressed on a suit professionally. Now, having seen all the kinds of the packaging, the way you should package yourself for interviews, it is of utmost importance to see the types of interviews that you should expect during the recruiting exercise, at least the most common ones. Now, the main types of interviews are the breakfast, luncheon, dinner interview, the telephone interview, in-house interview, one-on-one interview, panel interview, case interviews, stress interviews, and impromptu interviews. There are some variations of others, but these are the key types of interviews, and it is very, very important that you are able to design the kind of interview taking place, going on at that particular time, so that you'll be able to tackle it and defend the interview properly, because each of these interviews have a purpose. Now, if that is noted, let's start treating each of them. Now, the one-on-one interview, we are not following it serially. Let's start with the one-on-one interview. In this type of interview, just one recruiting officer interviews the job hunter and makes the real decision. That is, you meet just one recruiting officer. He is the person in charge. The final decision is going to depend on your encounter with him, how you are able to defend the job position. He is the one that is going to give the final say whether you are fit for this opportunity or not. This kind of interview tends towards informality. That the interviewer tries to be friendly because he needs you to open up. Those depends on the employer style. The interviewer usually has a list of questions prepared beforehand. He prepares these questions to ask the job hunter, although there might be some flexibility in their choices. It is always important to maintain eye contact with the recruiting officer. Fidgeting, looking at the ceiling and avoiding the recruiting officer's eyes might connote lack of confidence or inferiority complex. So do not feel shy during this kind of interview. You should be very, very friendly. At the same time, professional. Maintain business ethics. Don't get overly friendly. It is a one-on-one interview. And most times, one-on-one interviews are for a one-man business, a small firm, or an employer or recruiter that wants to know the individual better. It doesn't want you to get intimidated. So it comes in one-on-one, appears friendly, and tries to check you out, to weigh you out, to know if you fit the job position. Now, if that is noted, the second one, the opposite of the one-on-one interview actually, is a panel or board interview. Now, this type of interview entails being interviewed by two or more recruiting officers who have come to an agreement as to the job hunter best suited for the job position in question. Now, for this kind of interview, often organized by big brands, top multinational firms, it is a board. You have a group of persons interviewing an individual, and they will be grading you individually. In the end, the final decision is going to be based on all their inputs altogether, their evaluation and valuation of you. Government, non-profit, and other high-tech organization commonly use this type of interview. In this type of interview, it is advisable to direct your attention at the beginning and the end of your response to the person who asked you the question. If One of the interviewers asks you a question. When you are answering, direct your answer to that person. You can still look and be very, very natural. Look at the others, but direct your answer to that person that asked the question. Now, who asked the question, why occasionally looking at each of the members of the panel, as I just said. If you can link any of your responses to any you have given previously, do so. If at all possible, do get the panel members talking among themselves about your responses. If it is possible, do obtain the names of the interviewers prior to before the interview, so that during the interview section you can use them, you can mention their name, put Mr. You understand? This is bound to make them feel appreciated. This is psychological. You make them feel important, feel appreciated, since you took the time to ask after their names. Panel and board interviews could often appear very, very intimidating. They could even ask you funny questions. Some might even ask you 2, 3, 4, 5 questions at the same time, different persons at the same time. Do not lose confidence. Don't get fidgety. Pick one of them, face the person and answer while gesticulating naturally and looking at the person that asked that particular question. Now, the next one is the impromptu interview. This type of interview could occur when employers are approached directly and tends to be very, very informal, just like the one-on-one interview, and structured as well. It could also happen when you have previously applied for a job, only to be called upon to be interviewed when you last expected. You might have applied for the job and you have even forgotten about it. Maybe the person that they picked initially, that they intended picking, didn't meet up. The cap doesn't fit him, so they will just call on you impromptu to come for an interview. Applicants should be prepared at all times for the on-spot interviews, which is also the impromptu interview, especially in situations such as a job fair. It is an ideal time for employers to ask the candidates some basic questions to determine whether he or she may be interested in formally interviewing the candidate. Impromptu interviews, they happen often. Take for instance, there's a friend of mine. He was with me and it was very, very late. It was around 5 o'clock, and I said I'm not going to mention the name of any organization, and this bank, they called on him. He read electrical engineering from the University of Benin. Very bright young man. He was staying with me back then in the East. He did his youth service there in the East. So they called on him, and do you know what? That same night, they called on him around 5 or 6. That same night, and the interview was to be the following morning in Lagos. What did he do? That same night, they called on him around 5 or 6. By 7, 8 o'clock, he has already taken us straight to Onisha, where he took a luxury bus down to Lagos. He got there, did very well in the interview, smashed it, and they were paying him. It was very, very impressive. For an electrical engineering student. His salary was very, very okay. But he didn't stay long there because he read the engineering, wanted to work in an engineering firm. He just spent about 8 to 10 months with them and took another job, an engineering job this time in Abuja, that paid far less than the banking job. The engineering job in Abuja, I think, was paying 150,000 naira. As he told me, the banking job was paying far more than that. He took the engineering job because he said that he wants to practice what he learned in school. So this is a kind of impromptu. Call them impromptu interviews. Then we have the breakfast, the luncheon, the dinner interview. Now, if you are being invited for an interview in a hotel or in a restaurant, if it is in the morning, then that is breakfast. In the afternoon, luncheon. In the evening, dinner interview. Now, this type of interview is fast becoming a favorite of most firms worldwide. It might be structured, informal, or social or socially situated, such as in a restaurant. Some interviewers will ask you to order first. Do not appear indecisive. Now you are fidgeting, you don't know if you take the meal. If you're a lady, know that it is not a date. That even if it's a one-on-one interview, maybe just one person, and at the same time a breakfast or lunch or dinner interview, don't start seeing it as a date and getting too informal. Don't be indecisive. It is an interview. Decide what to eat quickly. Avoid eating very, very expensive meals. Don't pick the menu. You pick up the menu, you not demand for the most expensive meal there. Sometimes all these things are tests. Now be real, be yourself. There was an interview that took place in Benin, and all the interview was just this. They asked them to order for meal. It was an engineering job. Among the job hunters, the interviewers, was somebody I knew. He read in civil engineering, and he has spent 4 years at home, no job. Now he came for that particular interview, and do you know what he ordered? He ordered for pounded yam and ogbono soup. That is what he ordered for. Then after taking that, he now took extra and drank a bottle of big 50 cl Coke. Know some people, when maybe they are interviewing in an oil firm or oil servicing firm, they will say, oil firms, and they will start fasting for 2-3 days, so that when they get there, they are going to eat. No. So what now happened is that after he has finished his meal, what was the test? An equipment was placed on a tank, and there was a ladder to go and get the equipment done. As an engineer, after he has eaten that heavy meal and taken 50 cl bottle of Coke, he couldn't even get up, least of all to climb the ladder to go and get the equipment done. That is how he was screened out. Now sometimes it is not village people or evil spirit or a curse on that person that makes some persons not to get some particular opportunities or job placement. It is just misinformation or lack of information or ignorance, just like in this case. Now also, for this kind of interviews, do not pick the most miserable meal there at all, and don't order for things like spaghetti or noodles. The reason is that if you are taking spaghetti or noodles, you have to be, as you put it in your mouth, you have to, because it gets tangled up, you have to do something like for the thing to fly into your mouth. So while they're interviewing you, you are not eating noodles. And don't take pepper soup, don't eat pounded yam for goodness sake, or grass cutter pepper soup. Don't be greedy. You can just ask for coffee or water. Now if they insist, then you order a light meal. Just be yourself. Avoid messing meals like spaghetti, pasta, or noodles. Even if your interviewer orders for it, or even if it's your favorite meal, do be prepared for an abrupt change in conversation from a friendly chat to direct interview questions. However, do not underestimate the value of casual discussions. Some employers place a great value on it. Be prepared to switch gears rapidly without warning from phone talk to business talks. The luncheon interview is meant to assess how you can handle yourself in social gatherings. Always remember this. Then also we have the telephone interviews. Employers are increasingly using the telephone interview as a cost-saving screening device in this era, especially to cut down on travel expenses, to bring in candidates from distant locations. Many of the same principles of face-to-face interviews applies to the phone interview. but some aspects are quite different. For this interview type, remember to have a copy of your CV with you. Just appear as if you are actually going for an interview, because before then they must have told you that they are going to call so time. Now if they call you and you know that the environment where you are, it is not conducive, what you now do is that you just tell them that the environment, don't get fidgety or scared that the environment you are now is not okay. They will not schedule another time for your interview. It is not going to get you disqualified, rather than being in a noisy environment and you can't get what they are saying, and they will take it that your interview has been conducted and it is over. So avoid a noisy environment while taking the interview, a telephone interview. No barking of dog, no loud stereo, especially if you are at home. Don't be talking to the recruiting officer on phone, then you are shouting at your younger one, off the radio, off the TV. Not at all. It is not professional. Speak a little bit slower than usual, albeit though with confidence, since the interviewer is not there to physically examine you. Now, do not lie down with your lie down and be answering call. They are going to know that you are lying down, meaning that you don't take the interview serious. How will they know? Your voice will become slurred. They are going to know. When it comes to telephone interviews, a lot of bizarre things can happen, especially when you don't know when they will be calling you for such interview. On this note, never use a phone line that doesn't belong to you, especially that of a jealous lover or fiancé. Remember, during the writing of the CV, I made mention of the fact that you should use your own particular phone number. Don't use any other person's phone number. Even if you have a jealous lover, make sure that you are the one that picks your phone, picks your line. Don't allow anyone else, because you don't know. It could be a recruiting officer. Take for instance, let's say you are chilling, relaxing with your fiancé, and the phone rings. And you don't know that it is an interview call, and she doesn't know, but because she doesn't trust you, and you people have been having trust issues, she now picks up the phone, maybe saying, I know it's one of them. She now picks and listens to the call, and somebody from the other end, maybe a lady, a recruiting officer, now with a very sexy calm voice, now say hello, and the moment she hears the sound of another lady, because she's the jealous type, she's not understanding, she now starts screaming on the person, leave him for me, Ashawo, leave him for me, and calls the line. My dear, you have just lost that particular opportunity. You are not going to get it anymore. So what I'm going to advise you, if you fall into that shoe, talk to your loved one, talk to your fiancé, talk to your girlfriend or boyfriend, and plead with him that you should be the one answering your call. This might appear funny, but we have experienced cases like this. So make sure that the phone number attached to your CV is very much functional and on bad. Finally, always pick on known calls. You never know, you might just miss out on picking a phone call that could change your career journey for the better. Now, before I run this section up, I want to make mention of these facts. Now, if you want to work in the telecom firms like NTA, Glo, Etisalat, you want to in the mass media generally as a newscaster or handling one of the shows, you need to start working on your voice. You need to make your voice need to be professional. Let's take for instance now, you are working in the customer care, MTN, or let's say somebody in the customer they call you and it is an interview to work in one of the telecom firms like NTA, Glo, Etisalat. If somebody calls you on the line and you pick the line up and you answer, and let's say it is a customer care representative and you want to make inquiry, and the person say, my name is Lillian Odili, and the voice is like the voice of gorilla, you might say Jesus, and you just drop the line. So if you don't have a very, very good voice, customer care service might not take you. So if you know your voice is like that, you start working on it. Take for instance a well-known singer, Toni Braxton. She had bass voice and nobody ever believed that something good could turn out of it. But she changed history. She worked on her voice, and she had one of the best voice so far in when it comes to blues. Everybody, I believe, you know Tony Braxton. So work on your voice, very, very important. Then we have the in-house interview. With the jet age, employers are now relegating the normal norms in job interview to a more novel, more modern, more trendy and catchy interviews to pick the best of the best for their firms. This is where in-house interview comes into play. In-house interview entails putting a group of job hunters in an environment, banking in an environment while testing them in most of the interview types enumerated in this book. Financial institutions like banks, they employ this a whole lot. Then this kind of interview is often meant for high-stake jobs that require the best from the individual, and such jobs are often well-paying. An example of this kind of interview is showcased in The Apprentice, which is a TV show by Donald Trump, the billionaire, way back before he became the president of the United States. Though expensive, this interview will put the job hunters through very real life situations and stress, as if you are in the field, thus exposing any weaknesses and strengths, which enables the firm to pick the best of the best from the group. In this type of interview, interpersonal skills matters a lot. It is difficult to prepare for this kind of interview because you cannot predict what will happen, except to remember that and what is being tested, to use the skill you possess to be the best team player and leader you can be. Another example is the Big Brother Niger, Big Brother Africa, where a group of people are placed in the house, and it's a kind of interview because in the end you now have one winner. It is often high stake and well paid. Then we have stress interviews. The stress interview is meant to determine your stress level, your stress quotient. It introduces you not to an interviewer, but an interrogator. The interrogator asks you a number of offensive questions which are specifically designed to make you lose your cool. They want to get you angry. They want to see if you will lose your temper. What do? Just keep your cool. Don't get angry. Take your time. You respond politely to the question. The stress interview technique is typically used for positions in which the job hunter is expected to face a lot of stress on the job, like the customer care jobs in finance, in the banks. And the interviewer wants to see how well the job hunter is able to handle the stress. Don't take this interview personally. Don't get angry with the interviewer. It is what the employer demanded that the recruiting officer is carrying out. Recruiting officers are not actually your enemies. So the key to surviving stress interviews is to remain calm, keep a sense of humor, and avoid getting angry or defensive. Now, the case interview is a very, very unique one. This is a modern type of interview that is specialized in nature. It is primarily employed by management consulting firms as well as investment banking companies, and increasingly used by other corporations as at least part of their job interviewing process. Even if they inculcate panel interviews, they will still bring in the case interview. It is an interview in which you are introduced to a business dilemma, a problem, a particular issue, challenge that the company is facing, a case, like a case study. You are asked to analyze the situation, identify key business issues, and discuss how you would address the problem involved. Like, these are top managerial positions. So case studies are meant to scrutinize, look carefully at the skills that are especially important in management consulting and related fields. Quantitative skills, creativity, flexibility, and the ability to think under pressure and while on your feet. Listening skills, business acumen, keen insight, interpersonal skills, the ability to synthesize findings, professional behavior, demeanor, and the powers of persuasion. This kind of interview requires practice. You just need to be good. You listen to the question and understand what they actually want from you. There is rarely a right answer. They just want to see how you tackle such cases when you cross off for case interviews. The process for reaching your conclusion is equally important. Why did you make that particular decision? Why not the other one? To the interviewer. So how you come to a conclusion matters to the interviewer as in the conclusion itself. Meaning that they are not looking at a particular thing. You can answer, the answer could come in various ways, but how you arrive at that particular decision, conclusion, they would want to know. It is important to them. Though there is no right way to go about it, you must avoid wrong approaches as well, including ignoring or forgetting important parts, defending impossible ideas. You now start arguing or force-fitting wrong structure into a problem. Examples of case interviews are bound in the TV program The Apprentice by Donald Trump. I would recommend that every job hunter, every job seeker, you go pick up the various seasons of The Apprentice, especially when Donald Trump was anchoring it. And that gave him the name "You Are Fired." So these are the key and main types of interviews. And then when we come in this, we are going to be looking at the different kinds of interviewers. Thank you.